Good morning, boys and girls. I'm Eleanor Hawkins, and welcome to Telestory Time. The Library, a Magic Castle. Come to the Magic Castle when you are growing tall. Rows upon rows of word windows line every single wall. They reach up high as the sky, and you want to open them all. For every time you open one, a new adventure has begun. The Library, a Magic Castle. And now, boys and girls, our very first story this morning is entitled, Mr. Bear Squash You All Flat. Once in a certain part of the forest, there lived a very large and very stupid bear. His name was Mr. Bear Squash You All Flat, and this is why. He liked to squash things. He liked to sit on things and squash them flat. Now, he especially liked to squash the houses of other animals because he was too stupid to build a house for himself and had to live out of doors all the time. It is easy to see why this bad habit made him the neighborhood nuisance and why his name was Mr. Bear Squash You All Flat. For many days, Mr. Bear Squash You All Flat would live quietly and peacefully, sleeping under the trees and eating his favorite berries. And then there would be a night when the moon was full, and the next morning Mr. Bear Squash You All Flat would roam over the neighborhood, squashing everything in sight. It was lucky for him that he had never tried to squash a beehive, but what finally happened to him was almost as bad, as you will find out. It all began on one of his squashing days, after a very bright full moon had kept him awake the whole night long. He was so cross that he ran loppity-lop through the woods until he came right up to the house of a little gray mouse. "Hello in there," he roared. "I am Mr. Bear Squash You All Flat, and I give you fair warning. I am going to count to 3, and then I'm going to squash you flat." And he did. Then, feeling a little better, he shuffled off, looking for something else to squash. The little gray mouse, who had run out of harm's way while Mr. Bear was giving fair warning, looked sad at all that was left of his house. "Oh, well," he said, "no use crying over a squashed house," and he started out to find another place to live. Meanwhile, Mr. Bear had come to the home of a chipmunk. "I am Mr. Bear Squash You All Flat," he roared, "and I give you fair warning. I'm going to count to 3, and then I'm going to squash you flat." And he did. Now he felt much better as he shuffled off, looking for something else to squash. The chipmunk had heard Mr. Bear coming and had hidden behind a bush. He gave one low little groan when he saw what had happened to his house, and then he ran through the woods looking for another place to live. By now, Mr. Bear had come to another house. It was the home of a baby rabbit who had lost its parents during the last snowstorm of the winter and who lived all alone. But nothing could stop that stupid Mr. Bear. Oh no! He roared out, "I am Mr. Bear Squash You All Flat, and I give you fair warning. I am going to count to 3, and then I am going to squash you flat." And he counted to 3, and then he squashed flat that house too. There, now that's enough work for today," he said to himself. And feeling quite cheerful now, he lumbered off, loppity-lop, to find a shady place where he could catch up on his sleep. Now, the little gray mouse was looking everywhere for a new home. He went down a path and across a meadow and under a gate, and there right by a brook and in the shade of an oak tree there lay an old tire. Now this wasn't just an ordinary automobile tire, it was a great big super bus tire. "Why, what a perfectly splendid house," the little mouse said when he saw the tire. "I wonder if it's taken." He knocked on the tire and called out, little house, who lives here?" Not a sound. The mouse looked inside. "Well, nobody. Well, then I will." And he moved in that very day. Now the next day the chipmunk came scampering along. He stopped when he saw the tire. "Aha," he said to himself, "one of those modern houses, and running water too." And he called out, little house, who lives here?" "Nobody but me," answered the mouse, looking out of a window that he had just made to catch the morning sun. "Are you looking for a place to live?" "Oh, yes, indeed I am," said the chipmunk, giving one great bounce to show that he really meant it. "Well, come inside then, and let's live together." And the chipmunk moved right in. Now the next morning, along came the baby rabbit. He'd been lost twice and was beginning to think that he'd never be able to settle down again when he saw the old tire. Right away he called out, little house, who lives here?" "Oh, we do," said the chipmunk and the mouse, looking out at him. "Well, come in and live with us if you want to. There's plenty of room for one more." And so the baby rabbit moved right in. Now this made the tire quite full, so the mouse hung out a sign, "No vacancy," and the three of them lived happily together for some time. Then one night the moon was full and bright, and early the next morning, loppity-lop, down the path, across the meadow, and over the gate came that neighborhood nuisance, that large and stupid Mr. Bear, Squash-You-All-Flat, as cross as he could be. The baby rabbit was out getting his breakfast and saw him coming, and ran back to warn the mouse and the chipmunk. They all three hid behind the oak tree and trembled, and hoped that Mr. Bear would pass by without seeing their house. But he didn't pass by. He stopped at the brook to get a drink of water, and then he saw the old tire. Well, he said, "I think I'm going to feel better." And he went right up to the tire and roared out, "Hello in there, it is I, Mr. Bear, Squash-You-All-Flat, and I'm going to squash you flat." Just like that, without even counting to three, the baby rabbit hid his eyes. The chipmunk and the mouse sighed, and Mr. Bear sat down right on their house, plump. But nothing happened. That is, nothing happened except that Mr. Bear bounced a gentle little bounce into the air, and the tire was the same as ever. Now, Mr. Bear stood up and looked at the tire. There it was, the same as ever, and not the least bit squashed. Now, Mr. Bear could not believe his eyes. Neither could the three little animals hiding behind the oak tree. "Perhaps it's because I didn't give fair warning and count to three," he mumbled. Oh, he was such a stupid bear. So then he called out, "I am Mr. Bear, Squash-You-All-Flat, and I give you fair warning. I am going to count to three, and then I am going to squash you flat." And then he walked a little way off and came running loppity-lop and landed plop on the old rubber tire. And he bounced again, and this time he bounced higher, and there was the tire the same as ever. Now, Mr. Bear did not say a word. He was very, very angry. He walked away, and then he took one deep breath. The mouse whispered, "This is it, fellows," as Mr. Bear started running faster and faster and faster. Loppity-lop, 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 and he landed on top of the tire with a great thud. He bounced so high that he banged his stupid head quite hard against the lowest branch of the oak tree and came down with an awful plop on the solid ground. There was the tire, the same as ever. Now, this was quite a shock to Mr. Bear Squashy-All-Flat. He shook himself once and felt to see if there were any broken bones. There weren't. And then, you know, he ran off as fast as he could, which wasn't very fast this time. Now, you know, he never came back to that neighborhood. No matter how bright the moon shone, he never squashed anything anymore, never, never again. And that, boys and girls, is the story, Mr. Bear Squashy-All-Flat. And now stay tuned, and we'll be back in just a moment to read our Big Do You Know book. Stay tuned. Boys and girls, I'm going to read from our Big Do You Know book. Do you know all about autumn? Do you know fall is another name for autumn? It's because this is the season when leaves fall from trees. Do you know autumn is the season between summer and winter? We have autumn weather during September, October, and November. And fall begins on September the 21st or the 22nd. Do you know leaves get their green color from chlorophyll that helps absorb the sunlight? Do you know as days get shorter and temperatures cool down, the trees begin to rest? They stop making chlorophyll and other pigments and color the leaves red, orange, and yellow. The trees are getting ready for winter and will soon drop all of their leaves. Do you know the trees that have the most colorful leaves are red maple, the sugar maple, and the red oak? Yes, boys and girls, fall is here, and we can start enjoying the beautiful leaves every day. Boys and girls, be sure and visit your library, any of the public libraries in the Craven, Pamlico, Carteret Regional Library System. Begin in knowing that reading can be fun, and check out some very good books on the autumn at any of the libraries in the Craven, Pamlico, Carteret Regional Library System. Yes, have a good time reading about the beautiful leaves this fall. And now, boys and girls, stay tuned, and we'll be back with another story in just a moment. And now, boys and girls, I'm going to read you the story, Mrs. Gray Squirrel and Tiger Cat. "Brr," said Mrs. Gray Squirrel as she put her head out of the door of her house in the old oak tree. Jack Frost was certainly here last night, and I suppose now he will be here every day. I must begin today and get my house cleaning done." She went into her house, called Mr. Gray Squirrel, told the three little squirrels it was high time for them to be up, and set about getting their breakfast. Of course, everyone in the squirrel family minded Mrs. Squirrel, so it wasn't long before Mrs. Squirrel was ready for breakfast. And the three little squirrels, with faces washed and fur smooth, were in their places at the table. "Now," said Mrs. Gray Squirrel when they had finished, "today I'm going to clean house. So you children go outdoors and don't dare bother me until dinner time. And you, Papa Squirrel, when you come home tonight, be sure to bring all the nuts you can carry. Winter will be here before we know it, and we want to be ready." Just as soon as the three squirrels had helped put away the breakfast things, they ran out of the house to play in the trees, and Mrs. Squirrel went to work. Not 1 minute was wasted. Now, before noon, almost everything was in order, and Mrs. Squirrel sat down to rest a minute and catch her breath. Rap, 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 she suddenly heard. "Well, that must be somebody coming to call," said Mrs. Squirrel to herself, "and I really haven't time to talk to anyone. I'm not going to answer the door." Rap, 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 she heard again quickly, and then a rap, 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 rap. "Now, who is that? I'll just peek." And very quietly she climbed up to the little hall window and looked out, and she saw who was there. Mrs. Gray Squirrel was so frightened that she almost fell over backward, for there, right on her doorstep, was Mr. Tiger Cat, with his eyes big and cross-looking and his tail lashing back and forth. "Oh, what shall I do?" thought Mrs. Gray Squirrel. "He will come in here and eat me up, and then wait for the three little squirrels. Oh, I'll have to hide." So she crept softly downstairs and slipped into the deepest closet under the summer coats that she had just put away. She was just in time, too, for old Tiger Cat, tired of waiting, pushed open the door and walked right in. "Aha, no one at home," said he. "Well, I'll just shut this door and lie down here, and then when the squirrel family comes in, I'll have a fine dinner. I'm a smart cat, I am." Well, Mrs. Gray Squirrel could hear all that he said, and she peeped out from her hiding place and saw him by the door. "I can't fight old Tiger Cat," she thought. "He's just too big. I can't push him out the door, for he'd see me and catch me, and I haven't a thing to hit him with. Oh dear, what shall I do?" And then she thought of something. "I know what I'll do. I'll take Father Squirrel's gray summer coat. It's the only thing I haven't put away yet, and it's right here. I'll put it over Tiger Cat's head." She took the soft gray coat down from the hook, opened the door without the least sound, and crept up in back of Tiger Cat. Before he could blink his yellow eyes, she threw the gray coat over his head and tied the arms together. Well, if you could have seen old Tiger Cat, he didn't know what had happened to him. He jumped up and he danced around and around. He meowed, but he couldn't get the little gray coat off. Now, Mrs. Squirrel was hopping around too, and just as soon as she could get near the door, she opened it. And just as soon as old Tiger Cat was near the door, she gave him a great hard push. Down, down, down he went to the ground. "There," said Mrs. Squirrel happily, "he's gone and my babies are safe." Now, old Tiger Cat struck the ground with a hard bump, but he didn't care about the bump. He was so glad to be down on earth again. The little gray coat had slipped off on the way down and caught on the branch of the tree, so you know he never knew what had been over his eyes. And he never tried to find out, for old Tiger Cat stayed away from the old oak tree and the squirrel house ever after that. And that is the story of Mrs. Squirrel and old Tiger Cat from Pillow Tales. And now, boys and girls, stay tuned. and we'll be back in just a minute. And now, boys and girls, I'm going to read this story. Now it's fall. Summer is over. Now it's fall. Just the nicest time of all. Down, down, down. Leaves of red, gold, and brown come falling, falling down. Now the wind says, come and play. Catch them if you can. Hooray! Rustle, scuffle, kick at them. With your toe, shuffle, bustle, kick them as you go. See all we have found down on the ground? Let's rake a while and make a big pile. Down under the leaves in the pile I'll go. Cover me up from head to toe. Rain, rain on the window pane. Softly it taps and taps again. Rain, rain on the window pane. We like to walk in the rain, in the rain, in the rain, until the sun comes out again. Apples are ripe in the fall. Let's climb the ladder and pick them all. Oh, what a load we must tug and pull. The basket is heavy when it is full. Nuts are falling from the trees. We go picking on our knees. Squirrels too come and play. Pick up nuts and run away. Ding dong, oh what fun. The school bell rings, school's begun. Boys and girls hurry away. Back to school again today. It's fun to go to school, to read and write and spell. It's fun to go to school. I like it very well. Fly away to the south, little birds. Fly away, fly back again to us on a warm spring day. Great big pumpkins ripen in the fall. From the kitchen garden, we will bring them all. Oh, see what fun we can see. Down, down, and down the leaves of red and gold and brown come falling, falling down. My last page is stuck together. Summer's over, now it's fall. Just the nicest time of all. And boys and girls, that is the story. Now it's fall. And let me share this with you. This is a book that is wonderful for the whole family to read. It's entitled The Fall of Freddie the Leaf, a story for all ages. And you see these leaves here? We follow the life of a tree and all the beautiful leaves. And you might want to remind your parents that this would be a good story for you to read some night at bedtime. The Fall of Freddie the Leaf. And also I have a book here, a very short book that says, Now it is fall. Come on, friends, gather near. It's the best season of the year, for now it's fall. I love it all. In wintertime, the trees are bare. In spring and summer, green leaves are there. But now it's fall. I love it all. The vines and trees reach to the skies with a berry, apple, or a cherry surprise. Now it's fall. I love it all. Boys and girls, now it's time for us to close our book of stories for this morning, but we'll be back next Saturday. Until then, this is Eleanor Hawkins saying bye-bye for Telestory time.